What if civilization disappeared in a single afternoon? No parents, no rules, no rescue. Just a group of boys stranded on an island, slowly turning fear into violence. William Golding's Lord of the Flies is not just a survival story. It is a terrifying question. When the world falls away, what remains of human nature? The novel begins with a plane crash during an unnamed war. A group of British schoolboys has been evacuated, but their aircraft is shot down, leaving them stranded on a deserted tropical island. At first, the place seems almost beautiful enough to promise adventure rather than disaster. There are beaches, fruit, forest, and open water in every direction. But beneath that beauty is a terrible reality. There are no adults, no protection, and no clear path home. Two boys emerge almost immediately as central figures. Ralph is confident, physically capable, and naturally authoritative. Piggy is awkward, intelligent, and far less admired, but he is also the first to grasp how serious their situation really is. When Ralph finds a conch shell and blows it, boys begin appearing from all over the island. In that moment, the first fragile shape of society begins to form. The boys gather and attempt to create order. They hold an assembly, introduce themselves, and try to decide what must be done. Ralph is elected chief, partly because he is the one holding the conch, which quickly becomes a symbol of authority, speech, and civilized procedure. Jack, who leads the choir boys, wants power for himself and is visibly humiliated by the result, though he is given control of the hunters as a consolation. At first, the boys seem capable of building a small society. Ralph wants shelters, fresh water, and a signal fire to attract passing ships. Piggy supports reason, planning, and rules. Simon quietly helps where he can, showing a kindness and sensitivity the others often ignore. But even in these early moments, the seeds of future conflict are already clear. Ralph is focused on rescue and responsibility. Jack is drawn toward domination, excitement, and the thrill of command. The island becomes a testing ground for competing versions of leadership. One is built on cooperation and long-term survival. The other is built on impulse, ego, and force. Fear enters the story almost as soon as the boys begin to settle in. During an assembly, one of the younger children, one of the so-called Litlins, speaks of a beast lurking on the island. At first, the older boys dismiss the idea, but the suggestion spreads quickly through the group. In isolation, fear grows faster than logic. The dark forest, the strange sounds at night, and the uncertainty of their situation give the beast a life of its own. Piggy insists that there is no beast, that fear can be explained away by reason. Ralph tries to preserve calm and structure. But fear is not defeated by argument alone, especially among children already shaken by trauma and uncertainty. The beast becomes more than a rumor. It becomes a symbol of everything they cannot control. The jungle, the war beyond the island, and the hidden terrors within themselves. As anxiety spreads, the boys become harder to govern. Assemblies lose their force. Rules begin to matter less. What they are really losing is not just discipline, but faith in the idea that order can protect them. Ralph believes the most important thing on the island is the signal fire. As long as it burns, there is hope that a ship might see them and rescue them. But maintaining that fire requires steady work, discipline, and shared purpose, and those qualities are beginning to erode. One day a ship appears in the distance, but the fire has gone out. Jack and the hunters had abandoned it in order to chase and kill a pig. For Ralph, this is a devastating failure. Rescue was possible, and they let it slip away. For Jack, however, the hunt matters more. He returns exhilarated, proud of the kill, intoxicated by blood, success, and the approval of his followers. The argument between Ralph and Jack reveals the widening gap between them. Ralph is thinking about tomorrow, rescue, and responsibility. Jack is thinking about power, meat, and the immediate thrill of dominance. From this point onward, the island begins to divide more sharply. The boys are no longer simply trying to survive. They are being pulled between two different visions of life, one governed by duty, the other by appetite. As Jack's hunters spend more time in the forest, they begin to change. They paint their faces, and the masks allow them to shed shame and self-consciousness. Hidden behind color and ritual, they become less like schoolboys and more like members of a tribe. The hunt becomes theatrical, violent, and ecstatic. Their chanting grows more intense, their excitement more savage, and the act of killing begins to feel not merely practical but pleasurable. This transformation matters deeply, because Golding is showing how quickly civilization can be stripped away when people stop seeing themselves as accountable individuals. The masks do not create cruelty from nothing, but they give cruelty permission. Protected by anonymity and group emotion, the boys become capable of things they might once have feared or condemned. Meanwhile, Ralph struggles to maintain the shelters, the assemblies, and the signal fire with fewer and fewer loyal followers. Civilization is not collapsing all at once. It is being abandoned piece by piece until only its symbols remain. One night, a dead parachutist drifts down from the sky and lands on the mountain, tangled in his parachute. In the darkness and wind, the body seems to move. When the boys glimpse it, they believe they have finally found the beast. Their fear now feels confirmed, and panic tightens its grip on the island. The beast is no longer just a rumor among the Litloons. It has become the center of their imagination and the excuse for their growing chaos. But Simon, the quietest and most perceptive of the boys, begins to sense a deeper truth. In one of the most haunting scenes in the novel, he comes face to face with the pig's severed head left by the hunters as an offering. Surrounded by flies, it seems to speak to him, becoming the lord of the flies. In this grotesque vision, Simon understands what the others cannot. The beast is not something that hunts them from outside. The real beast is within them. This is the novel's darkest revelation. The island is not corrupting innocent children into monsters. It is exposing the violence, fear, and capacity for evil that civilization had previously restrained. As fear intensifies, Jack fully breaks from Ralph's leadership and forms his own tribe. He offers the boys what Ralph cannot: meat, excitement, belonging, and promises of protection from the beast. But what he is really creating is a society ruled by intimidation. His authority does not come from rules or consent. It comes from spectacle, hunger, and threat. Many of the boys choose Jack because he feels stronger, simpler, and more emotionally satisfying. Ralph's system demands patience, work, and self-control. Jack's system offers release. The divide between the two groups becomes a political and moral split. On one side are the fading remnants of order, represented by Ralph, Piggy, and the conch. On the other is a new tribal world shaped by fear and violence. Golding shows how easily people can surrender liberty and reason when they are frightened enough. The boys do not simply lose civilization. They trade it away. The tragedy of the island reaches its most horrifying point with the deaths of Simon and Piggy. After discovering that the beast on the mountain is only a dead parachutist, Simon rushes back to tell the others the truth. But he arrives during one of the boys' frenzied ritual dances in the storm. In their terror and excitement, they mistake him for the beast itself and fall upon him as a mob. Simon, the one character who truly understands the island's moral reality, is killed by the others before he can deliver the truth. Later, Piggy tries one last time to appeal to reason. Clutching the conch, he confronts Jack's tribe and asks the question at the heart of the novel. What is better, to have rules and agree, or to hunt and kill? But by then, reason has almost no power left. Roger, who has grown into a figure of cold, deliberate cruelty, releases a massive boulder. It strikes Piggy, kills him, and sends the conch shattering into pieces. With Piggy dead and the conch destroyed, civilization is finished. The symbols of order have not merely failed, they have been physically annihilated. Now Ralph is alone. Jack's tribe hunts him across the island like an animal, determined to kill the last remaining threat to their power. To flush him out, they set the island on fire, unleashing total destruction in the process. The same boys who once depended on the signal fire for rescue now use fire as a weapon of extermination. Their final act of savagery nearly destroys the island itself. Ralph runs through smoke, ash, and terror until he bursts onto the beach and collapses before a naval officer, who has arrived after seeing the great plume of smoke. The boys are rescued at last, but the ending offers no simple comfort. The officer sees children and assumes they have merely been playing. But Ralph knows the truth. He begins to weep, not just from relief, but from grief for Piggy, for Simon, and for what has been lost. He weeps for the end of innocence and for what Golding calls the darkness of man's heart. That is why Lord of the Flies remains so powerful. It is not just about boys on an island. It is about the terrifying fragility of civilization, and about how thin the line can be between order and chaos, reason and fear, humanity and brutality.